Hey everyone, I hope you're all well and hanging in there. For those of you who are in the midst of busy season, just know I empathize with you. I've just been through it and I've come out in one piece. I hope you will too. For those of you who are new, hi, I'm Maddie. I'm a third year or audit supervisor at a Big Four audit firm. So last week Friday, the SAICA APC results were released, and at 4:03 p.m, much to my surprise, I got an SMS saying that I had successfully passed my final board exam. Needless to say, I haven't ugly cried like that in a very, very long time. So anyway, after a week of reflecting on my results, I thought it might be nice to share with you what the APC exam is about, what it looks like, and how to prepare for it so that at the end of the year, you have no doubt in your mind that you have slayed it. Okay, to start us off, I'm going to chat about what the format of the exam actually is like. And it's very, very different to the ITC exam in that, for starters, you're going to write on a laptop. This laptop is usually issued by your firm and it will have pre-made SAICA software loaded onto it. That's point two. There's SAICA software that you're going to use where it basically just locks you in for that 8-hour period when you're just writing and you're not allowed to leave that software. And basically that just prohibits cheating and whatnot from occurring. Then thirdly, it's also all in email format. So you guys use this time now to get really good at writing emails, because that's all it is. It's basically each question is set up as a response. You as a newly qualified CA are going to be responding in email format to someone in this new company that you're part of. So it's usually responding to a CEO, CFO, whatever, and you're providing them with technical or professional advice. Then it's also researched in groups. So now it starts where you've either joined either the APT course or the UCT APC board course, and you're going to start forming your groups for your project. So those are usually about 4 to 6 people. My group is 5 people. That worked really well, but obviously it depends on you. I think you can also write by yourself, but let me tell you, it does really help to have a whole group of people so that you're relying on each other's skills and you get a good sort of diverse research pool. Another thing is this exam allows you to bring in study notes. So you'll have one big Lever Arch file full of your APC notes, so that will contain your research that you did in your groups for that week. I'll get into a pre-release, but basically you get a pre-release and then your research for that, and then that research is going to go into your file. But also it's really nice because you can include notes like at your own discretion. I included some PGDA notes, and that just gave me comfort over maybe the more technical aspects of the exam. So the overall format of this exam is that a week before, you're going to get a pre-release, and that pre-release gives you a bit of information about this company XYZ, and you are new to a position there. You're the newly qualified CASA, and you'll probably be doing something like, I don't know, financial manager position. And basically that pre-release just contains emails from someone in the company asking you to, hey, can you look into this? This is a situation, do you know anything about this? And so with each email, more or less guiding you towards a trigger in the exam. So if you didn't already know, trigger is going to become the biggest buzzword of the year for you. Basically what it is a sort of clue as to what the final exam is going to contain. So in the pre-release, maybe one of those emails might look like the CFO saying, hey dude, SARS identified an issue with how we recognize taxable income. They're saying it's income in nature, not capital in nature. Can you please look into this? Now, in that instance, that's a hard trigger to go research the definite tax aspects of whatever your company does. And you are going to come up with your own interpretation of whether it's capital in nature, income in nature, and literally any tax section around that. So just to summarize, trigger, it's giving you a clue what you need to research for on the day. But I will go into more detail later. Okay, then on the day of the pre-release, you're going to go through the entire pre-release with your group and identify what are the triggers that we need to research, and then ultimately put those bits of research into your file so that on the day you are ready. But when the final questions do come, you can go into your file and be like, okay, cool, we researched this. This was a trigger, cool, it links to this question in the final exam. And there are multiple ways of doing this sort of research. Our group really like to split up the triggers per person based on their strength. So for example, in my group, I had a girl called Electra, who is literally a brain on legs, and she's really good at financial reporting. So she did most of the financial reporting questions. And that was awesome because I felt like a lot of the insight that she brought was something I would never have thought about. Whereas I did more of the, I guess, management accounting questions where you're thinking about business, because that's what I really like. And that also then adds a diverse aspect of the research to your group. And so when you have the pre-release, you've highlighted the triggers, and you go home and you do your own research that you've been allocated. You're going to then get together with your group, discuss the triggers, see if anything comes up that wasn't previously discussed that you want to add to your file. You'll print your notes, put them in your file, bring through your IFRSs, And on D-Day, when you write the final exam, you'll walk in with your file, your IFRSs, your lunch, and your laptop, and you'll be ready to write the final exam. So this exam consists of about 7 to 8 questions, each being in an email format, and it will say, hey, remember that thing I spoke to you about in the pre-release, please provide an actual response on this. And then you'll know exactly what they're asking, and you will hope that it relates exactly to what you researched in the pre-release. Okay, so that's how the APC exam goes. Now let me impart some vital advice on how I got through this exam. I'm going to go in chronological order so that it's easy to follow, okay? My first bit of advice is to do with your APC team. Guys, I cannot stress enough how important your APC group, your research group, is going to be. Because, as you know, you're starting your APC studying from now in March, and you're going to be with this team until December. You need to make sure that you like them. It's really important. If you don't like them, you're going to have all sorts of issues that come up because you're very tense during this time. You're writing exams. This is a big exam. You want to make sure that you guys get along, and not only that, that you share the same work ethic. If you are an A-type like me, you would never be able to work with someone who's really chilled and doesn't take studying as seriously as you do. I was very lucky. My entire group is extremely pedantic. So we're on the same page about when we're studying, what we're doing. There was no misalignment in expectation, which really, really helped. And I think that is why my entire group passed, which is so cool. But really take it seriously. Don't just accept friends for the sake of accepting friends. I think really think about, well, does my friend Benny actually work well with me? Okay, the next point is your timing of research. So usually you're given about 5 days to prepare. So you'll receive your pre-release on day 1, and then day 5 or day 6, you're going to be writing your exam. So it's really important in those days, because it's not a very long period, you need to plan your research wisely so that on the day you have everything you're ready and you feel good about writing. So on day 1, when you get the pre-release, I wouldn't recommend taking a break. What's really nice about this exam is that you can't research anything before you get the pre-release. It's just too broad. You'll never know what to focus on. So day 1, you actually do have the stamina to go home, highlight the triggers, discuss with your group, and allocate them out. So that's what we did. We said, cool, guys, at 4 p.m. we're going to receive this. Then literally 4 p.m. please go read through the pre-release, highlight what you think are triggers, and then by 6 p.m. we would discuss with each other what we thought the triggers were, and we would then allocate them out based on who we thought would be best for that section or whatever area, whatever trigger. Then for days 2 to 3, you're going to be researching your triggers by yourself. We like to use like specific uniform formats of being like, this is my trigger number, this is the page of the pre-release I found it on, these are the sections that are covered, because some triggers might encompass multiple disciplines, so it could be financial reporting and tax, financial reporting and management accounting. Then you would split up the trigger. Well, this is what we did, pinch of salt, but it really worked for us. But you'd basically split the trigger up into those disciplines so that you don't get confused, nothing's too mushed, you're actually looking at each section individually. And then it also helps you to get that knowledge back, because by this time you've been auditing for about 2 years, 1 year, and that knowledge might be long gone. So it is good to also break it up so that you get a bit of a refresher. Then on day 3 to 4, our group would meet in person usually and give a little presentation on your trigger. It's really nice to do that. I don't know about you guys, but I find like being animated and all of that really helps me learn better and engaging in the discussion rather than sitting at home reading their research, because we had a Google Drive. It's better than just going onto their research and trying to absorb it by yourself. I really liked it when one of my team members would get up and, write on the board, this is what you do and these are the journals, because that way at least you're like, okay, I remember exactly what Lucy said about this trigger because you were there and you were engaged in it. And then also around this time, you would want to finalize those research points so that if anything did come up, you just add it to the notes, print your notes, and then basically on day 3 or 4, you would like to have those printed notes so that you can walk around the house and discuss them with people and really engage in the content. It's so important to understand your business beyond anything, probably beyond even the technical, to show that you're a professional. It's really good to know what your business is about. What are the risks? What are the opportunities? Who are my competitors? I think that's the real edge that you have to show that you are going to be a qualified CASA. It's not just about applying theory, it's really understanding like the economics of it all. And then on the last day before the final exam, that's seriously alone time. Look at your notes, just maybe start looking at what is in my file. Do I want any other notes? I loved having the taxable income calc because I'm really bad at remembering things, or I don't know, maybe some consolidation journals, just general things that you would feel more comfortable having in the final exam. But I would say don't try like beef up your file too much, because it is going to be on your desk, it takes up space. Maybe just keep it more consolidated. Anyway, basically this advice really is coming from my personal experience and what my team did. It doesn't have to be what you do at all. I think it's really nice to chat to other groups or other third years that have passed their APC board exam and see what they did and get a diverse opinion. This is really just a personal thing. My third bit of advice relates to going through the actual pre-release. It's really important when you identify triggers that you're looking at the hard triggers. And one of the biggest mistakes me and my team made was that we'd think anything was a trigger. It would be like mentioning some bit of legislation. It would be like, oh, that's a trigger. A trigger really is as direct as possible. It's like, look into this. Please do not look into this. If something says, do not look at the tax consequences, don't be a smartass and look into the tax consequences. It's scoped out, good for you. You'll research whatever else comes up in that trigger. And then beyond the actual hard triggers, make sure your bases are covered. So as I mentioned, it's really good to get an understanding of your company. That is so important. You can't be giving advice to the CFO or the CEO without actually understanding what the context of the advice is. For example, we have an airline company. I can't now be giving advice on airlines if I actually don't know, well, that they're very highly intensive in fuel, and that might impact the way that this airline runs, that the dollar is strengthening against the rand and this is going to impact their business. I've got to understand the business model in order to give solid advice. So what I would recommend doing is doing like a SWOT analysis in addition to general like competitive environments, looking at the economic landscape of your company, and identifying these extra bits that might give you a more highly competent answer. It's also nice if the pre-release does mention bits of legislation that you aren't so familiar with. Add those notes into your research also, just so you have a background of what acts impact them, because also that will add to your discussion and your arguments in your final exam. And the most important point is the APC exam will contain an ethics question. This might not be obvious in the pre-release, but it will become obvious in the final exam, and you have to answer this well. I think if you fail this, I'm not sure, I think it is true. Yeah, if you fail this, you fail the exam. Your job as a CASA is to be ethical, right? That's basically what governs us. The CPC governs our ethical principles. So when that ethics question does come up, make sure you know exactly how to answer it. And so what does an ethical dilemma look like, you say? Well, it might be something where the CEO is like, hey Maddie, or it'll say, hey newly qualified CASA, I'm going to fly to Barbados with my family. You know, I've had a really tough financial year, as you know, so I'm going to take my family to Barbados on the company. Please just allocate that expense to marketing expenses. So now as a CASA, I do know that that would be unethical because he's using company funds for something that's personal. Therefore, I am in a bit of an ethical dilemma because I shouldn't really be touching this. I should not be listening to his advice. I'm not going to allocate that to marketing expenses. So it's all about structuring your response to that CEO, saying, hi CEO, basically what you did, this is why I disagree with it. And as a CASA, I have to abide by these following guidelines. Usually you'd mention the CPC and the King, always King, CPC. Why can't I abide by it? Because of that. Be very precise and concise. Ultimately, be very firm on where you stand without being rude. I think that's really important. I've seen a lot of example answers where people have been like, absolutely not, like that is disgusting behavior. Guys, your emails need to reflect how you might talk to someone in real life, and I really don't think that's how you would go about it. Be professional, be polite, but also be really firm on where you stand ethically. Okay, and then I did mention this briefly, but basically structuring your research is really important so that your ideas aren't all over the show. My team and I, as I mentioned, had a Google Drive where we'd have per each trigger a Google Doc, and that Google Doc would be very specific in how, or what the trigger was, where you find it, what the disciplines were, and providing maybe if it's like maybe we thought it might be an ethical dilemma, then it would be a template for when we get that ethical question of how we might set it up. And that's really helpful. You feel so much more prepared because you have this whole guideline ready to go on the final exam. On the day of the exam, or just before I guess, it's really important to be prepared. You are writing on a laptop, on software you've never used before probably. So make sure that software is downloaded. You've done all the attempt questions. So they usually do a little test to check that the software is working. Please do that before. Make sure that you have your file. that you have your IFRSs and your other standards, you have lunch and water because it is a very long day, you have a clock, and you have your laptop ready with a charger. That's not a complete list. Please look at SAICA's website for what the complete list is, but those are the basics. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. I had one of the worst exam writing experiences probably that anyone's had. A few hours into my exam, the SAICA software stopped working and my screen went white and it just got error codes everywhere and it crashed a few times. And no one knew what to do. The invigilators were like, uh-oh. And I was panicking. I was so stressed. And this happened a few times. And by the last time I'd run out, I was, maybe like an hour behind. And I don't know, I was in tears. And I just remembered my third year who had passed the APC that year saying, Maddie, if there's anything that you can do, it's to write a template for every single email so that if you do run out of time, you at least have a basis for that question. So what I did was I literally went to the last question that I hadn't finished at all, was like, dear whoever, or hi Ronald, hope you're well, kind regards, newly qualified CASA. And that's, I think, as much as I was able to answer for that question. I definitely would have failed it, but you hardcore fail if you don't write something. Basically, you need to write at least a beginning, an intro, and an end in order to qualify for a pass. Don't leave a question blank. So I did that. I left the exam bawling my eyes out. My boyfriend didn't know what to do with me, and I was just like, I failed. And it was a horrible 2 months because I just knew, well, I thought I knew that I had failed because I just didn't manage to write anything for that last question besides a bare minimum template. And so you can imagine my surprise when I got my SMS saying that I had passed. And this is not to say that I'm amazing or smart or whatever, it's not. It's to say, if there's one thing that you can remember on the day, it's that you need to write the basis for every single answer. Do not leave a question out. And then beyond that, I don't think there's much more to say on the APC. It's actually a really fun exam, and I know that's shocking and you're going to roll your eyes at me, but really it is. You can't prepare for it beyond that week. There's nothing you can do, which is such a nice, comforting feeling. So for those of you who might feel overwhelmed, or you think you're going to be overwhelmed with studying and work and all of that, I didn't really feel that because you get the study leave. So in that time you're studying. No one from work can bother you. Please tell them to go away kindly. And if you like your team, which I really did, it was such an awesome experience. You got to know new people and get to have diverse opinions, and it was really fun to engage. I really enjoyed it. And it was also nice in the business aspect to learn about a new company, or I don't know. I really liked the experience, obviously besides my final exam. But also, please make sure you do all your board course assignments. You really don't want to not be able to write the final exam just because you're a bit lazy in the year. Do your assignments, be diligent, start working now, but really don't put so much pressure on yourself. I think everything will come naturally, and by the end in December when you're ready to write, you will actually feel ready to write. But otherwise, that's all from me. If you do have any specific questions, I love answering your questions. Please drop some comments below. And I hope you all have a lovely year. Thanks, guys.